Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new report shows that Arizona government gets more of its general revenue from federal funds than just about any other state in the union. And we'll meet local artist Eddie Mitchell, whose work is getting worldwide attention. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A DPS radio transmission logs released today to Arizona Republic shows that state forestry officials initially believed that there could have been survivors among the 19 firefighters killed in the Yarnell Hill fire. The records reveal that a fire incident dispatcher asked DPS to put a medevac helicopter on standby and that hospitals should be put on alert. A DPS paramedic was then dropped off by helicopter and hiked to the scene where he radioed back that he had 19 confirmed fatalities. The transmission logs will be among many records examined by investigators looking into the deaths of the firefighters. And the Goldwater Institute says it will not challenge an arena management deal between the Phoenix Coyotes and the city of Glendale. The Goldwater Institute says it does not believe that the deal would be held unconstitutional. The Glendale City Council last week approved the deal with the team's new prospective owners, a move that will keep the Coyotes at Jobbing.com Arena for the next 5 years. A new report shows that nearly half of Arizona's general revenue comes from federal government funds. Only Mississippi and Louisiana receive a higher percentage of their state funds from Washington. The report was put together by the Tax Foundation of Washington, D.C. Here now to talk about the findings and what they say about Arizona's economy is ASU economist Dennis Hoffman and Byron Schlomock, Chief Economist at the Goldwater Institute. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
46% of Arizona general revenue from federal funds. Dennis, that a surprise to you?
Not really. Not really.
How come?
We're a low tax state. We don't ask our own citizens on a relative basis compared to other states, say per capita basis or as a share of income. We don't ask our own citizens to pay for the basic costs of government the way other states do. Federal dollars are parsed out more or less equally across the states. We get a little bit higher share in some sense for some reasons. But when you take that federal share that everybody gets, say on a per capita basis, and you add it to our low local tax burdens, the feds come out with a lot.
46%, that's a surprise to you?
Well, no, not at all. Generally, you can expect nearly any state to have at least a third of its revenue come from the federal government. If you look at things a little bit more broadly and look at state and local governments, even then the rankings wouldn't change a whole lot.
That's right.
What is different, though, it is what Dennis was referring to, and that's the amount of local spending, local sourced funds that you tax and spend. And Arizona has a relatively lean government at the state level as well as at the local level. If you compare us to Massachusetts, this ranking makes us look like bums in a way. But if you look at per capita spending, federal money on a per capita basis, Massachusetts actually ranks 19th, Arizona ranks 21st. Texas, which ranks 11th in the Tax Foundation study, ranks 39th. We did a little bit of math at the Institute and looked at cost of living, adjusted some of this for cost of living. Now, because Massachusetts costs a lot to live, they go way down in the ranking. So you get into this and it's a bit more subtle. I would say that the Tax Foundation's little study is a little ham-fisted, but they do have an important point to make, and that is that when it comes to federal deficit spending, states are part of the problem.
Well, states are parts of the problem, but Arizona, again, let's get back to Arizona here. Right. Regardless of the numbers, in terms of general revenue, that's pretty, when only 2 other states have a higher percentage. Right. Ham-fisted or no, the numbers are there.
Right. That's right. And again, Ted, it goes right back to the fact that today we don't ask individuals for much in the way of state revenue when you compare to other states, and you compare to other states like Texas or whatever. We just don't ask much. We're we're 49th in terms of a per capita ask on own source revenue for the state, and as a share of personal income, we're 48th. And by the way, since 1992, we've slid dramatically. In fact, I looked at per capita revenues on an own source basis. This is the dollars that we ask our own citizens to contribute. We grew the slowest of any state in the union. In fact, we were the only state on a revenue per capita basis over the last 20 years that didn't even grow as fast as inflation. So our revenues didn't grow as fast as the old population and inflation metric that some of the folks at Cato like to use.
What Dennis is talking about, and again, back to these original numbers here, does it suggest that there is some sort of tilting out of balance here between a state that says, and is oftentimes at odds with the federal government, coming back and having practically half of its general revenue coming from the federal government?
Well, to some extent, we, like other states, have subjected our policies to federal mandates because of federal largesse. I mean, if you look, we're instituting the Common Core, which is still pretty controversial across the whole country in education. And part of the reason we're doing that is in pursuit of federal dollars. You look at the Phoenix Light Rail system. Part of the reason that exists is because we pursued federal dollars. ADOT continues to study high-speed rail between here and Tucson. Why? It's in pursuit of federal dollars more than anything else. And so over and over again, if you want to look at some of our poorer policy decisions, and I would argue that that includes the Medicaid expansion last session, this is always in pursuit of federal money.
Is it in pursuit of federal money for its own self, or is it in pursuit of federal money because that's the only way these things could get done?
Well, we're not going to finance all by ourselves, as was argued, and I think is correct, a Medicaid expansion. I don't necessarily think we could afford it, but we are pursuing the federal dollars for their own sake, with the idea that somehow or another, well, if we don't get it, somebody else will get it, or if we don't get it, we're kind of silly not to get it. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. What we have is, because of the federal system, a divide and conquer strategy on the states. And so we're all mutually irresponsible when we look at federal deficit spending, and it's leading to the financial ruination of this country. Ultimately, we're part of the problem.
What do you make of the idea that if we don't spend it, someone else will, and we've already put into it?
Well, and I understand that, and I think there's a particular logic to that, but I think this discussion kind of misses the basic point. And the point in Arizona is that we have a taste for very low taxes. We have, I think, if you just follow the political debate and discussion, we have a distaste, as I think Byron's articulating. Many folks have a distaste from a number of the policies that the federal government advances. But at the end of the day, that would suggest to me that it's our responsibility as citizens of Arizona to pay a greater share of the bill for things that we want, like roads, like basic education. We have a state that unfortunately is exposed to, as we know, devastating fires. But yet when we look for help there, it's always a federal government ask. And I think that these are federal forests. These are federal forests. The federal government has an obligation there, Byron.
And they're not managing it very well.
I understand, but those federal forests are not equally distributed across the states either. And so those states and those citizens that choose to build homes in close proximity to those forests, I mean, don't you believe that there's some individual responsibility here?
Well, sure.
That the state has and those individuals have?
I mean, if we could manage the forests, and I think there are a lot of people, including very conservative people like me, who are willing to take that on if the federal government would just get out of the way. But look, I mean, where you said we were falling behind, I think we were improving. We were pulling ahead of everyone else.
Pulling ahead
and we were.
Of everyone in what regard?
In terms of keeping our government small and the economic benefits that produces. It's much less of a burden.
Do you think we've brought permanent prosperity by being, the low tax guy on the totem pole here?
Well, your next thing is going to be the housing debacle. And I just got through reading a book by Randall O'Toole called The American Nightmare that makes it very clear that the states with centralized growth planning, where that's the problem, and we have that in this state.
Actually, I'd like the Texas model a little bit more. I mean, you're a fan of Texas, and they've got residential property taxes, they've got banking laws that help fend it off, all of that speculation. And I think that could have been a way to go.
And overall, even smaller government than we have on a relative basis.
You mentioned, especially in terms of forests, because that's obviously a sore point right now and a tender spot. The state could do more if the feds would, I think your quote was, just get out of the way.
Right.
Will the state do more if the feds get out of the way? Will
I have
roads
no
get
doubt.
built and bridges be constructed?
You think they would tax themselves to provide the revenue to support doing more?
Well, what we would find is that, and to some extent, I think Arizonans resent this. We, in the past, have treated federal lands as a free resource, and the federal government really hasn't acted like an owner. They're starting to now, but they're not a very good owner. They're not really running it very well. And what you would see is the state would finance itself through fees for the people who want to access and be close to that land. And that's a very efficient and effective way to do things, and justifiable.
Efficient and effective?
I completely agree with a model like that. If we could implement. What my fear is, we have such a distaste for taxes in this state. It is, the evil upon all evils, that it's just kind of hard for me to conceive of that model.
But I'd oppose taxes. I'd support fees.
Fees.
People who don't use the forests, I wouldn't charge them a dime.
Okay, fine. But I think a lot of folks just lump taxes and fees together.
Well, maybe
some people call the Medicare fee a tax.
Let's just real quickly here, as far as the equation for Arizona, the 46%, I keep trying to get back to that original report.
Yeah.
Is that a healthy equation for Arizona?
Well, in a way, it's what we're stuck with, Ted, given the fact that we've chosen not to ask our citizens to pay a greater amount for public services.
Are we stuck with something healthy or unhealthy?
Well, I don't think, and I think this is what we're going to find over the next 5 years. I think that folks are going to find that there's not enough dollars in the state's general fund under the current tax system after we've slashed the income tax rates over the last 15 years by 40%. And I can't find any other state that's done that, by the way. I think that folks are going to find that there is a taste for a higher quality public sector, be it in quality of education or quality of roads or quality of public infrastructure in some way, shape, or form. But that'll just have to play its way out, and we're going to see how it works.
All things considered, is this a healthy equation for Arizona?
I don't think it's a healthy equation for any state, even the least funded from the federal government state. There's too much of the federal government involved in policy making, and because they can dictate because they finance so much. We have looked at federal deficit spending. We're ultimately all headed in the same direction because of federal deficit spending. We have advocated a policy where the states would, we would advocate changing the federal constitution so that states have to give permission to the Congress to deficit spend any further. I think that would cause our legislatures to look more long-term at all of these issues and weigh out the benefits of federal largesse when we recognize that we have to take responsibility for how much of the spending we're doing.
Real quickly.
$65 billion we get from the feds, and if we go down this path, we got to figure out what we can live without. And a lot of that is private sector procurement. By the way, it was surplus in June, records federal surplus in June. Do you believe it?
Do you believe, real quickly, back to you, Brian, do you believe that people would be willing to live without as opposed to paying more?
I think to a great degree we've already demonstrated we're willing to live without.
Okay.
And look, the bottom line is it's not really living without. Remember, we're minimizing the take that the government possesses of our earnings, and by doing that, we improve our economic growth and our economic
Quality
prospects.
schools, quality roads, quality
And we're doing a
infrastructure.
pretty good job with what we have.
We'll see.
Well, and we will stop it right there. Good discussion, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Byron.
In tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat, we meet a Phoenix-based painter and sculptor who's been nominated for a worldwide list of promising artists. Eddie Mitchell is on the short list for the 100 Painters of Tomorrow, with the finalists to be chosen by art experts from all over the world. Eddie Mitchell joins us now to talk about his work. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Shortlisted 100 Painters of Tomorrow. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about a competition based out of London that is going to be set up for 100 finalists, put into a publication by Thames and Hudson in 2014, also then put into a show at the Institute of Contemporary Art in London. This was put together by Kurt Beers of Beers and Lambert Contemporary Art in London. They started off by receiving 4,300 submissions worldwide, 105 countries.
Yeah.
They've narrowed it down to 400. That's the short list, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for that final 100.
Is there any indication, art in contests always seem a little incongruous to me, but is there any indication what these judges are looking for?
You know, from what I gather from the blogging and the information that they've been sending out, is they're really trying to find some new things that are happening in painting. Painting has been kind of put on the back burner for a number of years because of all the new things that are happening in art. And now we're seeing a resurgence, a renaissance, if you will, of painting. So they're looking for some new things that are happening. So,
What are some of the new things that are happening with painting?
you know, we're dealing with generations that are looking at social media. They're viewing the world around them through a computer screen as opposed to going out into, nature and finding things that way. So you're seeing that kind of connection in the painting and the artwork that's coming out now.
Is that connection, are you seeing that with your own work?
Not necessarily. I mean, I do find myself image hunting on the computer, but more so image hunting as I go around, around different areas or my day-to-day life.
I find that image hunting, I find that phrase fascinating because the creative process always interests me a lot. First of all, you're a painter and a sculptor. When you are ready to create, how do you know which medium to use?
I pretty much start off in painting. I approach my process, my body of work, through a light narrative type of structure. I then go into painting when I find myself into a rhythm where that rhythm starts to dictate that I need to work into the next dimension, then I work then into sculpture. And the sculpture then feeds me back into painting, and it comes full circle.
So if you are image hunting and you bag an image, do you say to yourself, painting, yes, or sculpture?
Well, when I refer to image hunting, what I'm basically saying is to me there's no such thing as inspiration. We hear the saying, what inspires you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't go by that. What we really are doing is we're going out and we're stealing things. We're stealing images. We go out and that's where the hunting comes from. So we're collecting those things and putting them into our file cabinet, if you will. And then as something triggers us at a deeper level or at another, avenue through that hunting of images, that then triggers those things that we've collected, and we go through our process at that time.
I believe we have some of your art that we would like to take a look at here as soon as we can. But as we look at what you've done, When you finish a piece, I'm always fascinated with it. Do you know you're finished? Mm-hmm. You do know. How do you know?
I paint more when I don't paint. So when I'm out of the studio, I'm still working on that process as far as my strategy and my work ethic, what's going to happen the next day or the next week on these works. That doesn't specifically say when I'm going to be finished, but it always comes down to the brush mark, and the brush mark is the one that when I know it's finalized, there's just something almost slightly intuitive, if you will, about it that says this is complete.
And when you start, do you have the image in mind? I mean, are you ever surprised when you're finished with what shows up?
You know, absolutely. I believe, you know, there's a give and take.
Yes.
I mean, art teaches me. I mean, art is the dictator, if you will, you know. So I'm going back and forth, and we're having this kind of play. So if things erupt or come into that situation through that image hunting and gathering, you know, then we go ahead and try to figure those things out. So there's a lot of smaller kind of problems that are set up, and I almost purposely try to set problems into place so I can then solve them and then go back and forth with the medium.
And I was interested when you said sometimes you're working when you're not working. Is that somewhat similar? I know in sculpture you remove. There's a lot of removing from a stone or removing from whatever the medium is. When you paint, are you thinking along those same lines, or is your process of creativity so totally different?
Well, I mean, there's always those times when you're tearing that painting apart, or you're tearing it down, so to say. You're building up and pulling back and tearing down and adding to it, you know. So there's always that as well. I mean, the painting to me becomes almost sculptural because they are larger, and I'm very physical about the way I apply the paint.
I want to go back to what you said regarding a renaissance in painting. This is something that has been done for hundreds and hundreds of years. Can you do something new in paint?
Yes. Yes, and the reason being is because if we try to train ourselves to disconnect from the rules, so to say, and make up our, you know, search for that individual language that's not been dictated by the rule makers, and we spend that time to seek that out, we will have no choice but to come up with something that is original.
Original but new, something that makes people go, well, I've never seen anything like that.
If every individual is new. So, I mean, if an individual painter comes up with something that's exclusive, and he comes up, or she comes up with an exclusive language, it has no choice but to be new.
What got you started in art?
It was a language that I was able to communicate with from a very young age.
When you were a kid, were you the kid in class who always drew better than all the other kids?
I don't know if it was necessarily draw better. I wasn't I wasn't the killer technician, if you will. I was always the kid that was always wanting to go dig deeper into that and kind of draw something out.
Was there a point in your life, and I ask this almost every time I have an artist on, regardless of what they do, was there a point when you kind of said to yourself, I'm pretty good at this, and was there a point when you said, I'm really good at this, I can make a life of this?
No, I think there was a point where it said, this is the thing that is. I mean, this is what I do. This is how I communicate. I mean, this is the language, and this is how I want to tell my story for the rest of my time. It wasn't the like thing and all of that. I mean, I don't make the work for a monetary situation or for even showing. When I'm making my work, I'm not even thinking about what the viewer might even intend to get out of it. I have to be so free in that process, and then have the trust that if it does go into a space, that message or that language will be seen.
And I did want to ask you, what do you want folks to take from your work?
Well, as I build these bodies of work through these narratives, through these objects, I mean, those objects should come out and should come through. Then as they see the brush marks and the way the paint's applied, perhaps they can then go to that next layer of what that language might be that then is interacting with that object or that narrative. Because there's a lot of personal iconographies in these pieces.
Sure.
Not, very individualistic.
But when you exhibit, you are showing, you're telling the world, here it is. What's next for you?
Well, we've got a show that's up right now at our Pella Contemporary Art in Phoenix on 3rd Street and McDowell. I've got a piece that's going into the Arizona Biennial Next week it opens on the 20th down in Tucson. That'll be up until the end of September, and then keeping our fingers crossed on the next 100 painters.
Well, all right, Eddie Mitchell, thank you so much. Continued success.
Thank you.
And Friday on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists' Roundtable. The Arizona Supreme Court let stand a ruling that police cannot seize medical marijuana from card-carrying patients, and Valley foreclosure rates return to normal historic levels. Those stories and more Friday on the Journalists' Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.